What if the advice you've been given to help reduce your tinnitus to get more sleep is actually making things worse? I can't tell you how many patients have come into my clinic saying they've gotten that advice and they feel like they're doing everything right, trying to get more sleep and trying to relax, and yet their tinnitus still is getting louder at night. Sometimes it even gets worse after a good long night's rest. Tinnitus tends to scream the loudest when the world goes quiet, so naturally people assume more sleep will bring more relief. But what if it's not just too little sleep that's the issue, but too much? What if you've been unknowingly sabotaging your brain's ability to filter out sound simply by trying to sleep in? My team and I have treated thousands of patients with chronic tinnitus, and we specialize in combining science, compassion, and real-world evidence-based strategies to help people get their lives back. In this video, I'm going to share a surprising new study that reveals the hidden U-shaped link between sleep and tinnitus. I'll explain why both too little and too much sleep can make your tinnitus worse, what the scientific sweet spot really is, and 5 practical steps you can take starting tonight to help calm your nervous system, reset your rhythm, and finally get the kind of sleep that actually helps.
If you're navigating hearing loss or struggling with ringing in your ears, then you've come to the right place. The All Ears Hearing and Tinnitus podcast is your go-to source for expert insights, real stories, and cutting-edge solutions in hearing health. We'll dive into the latest advancements in hearing healthcare, explore groundbreaking treatments for tinnitus, and offer practical tips for better hearing. Here to help you tune into a world of better hearing, here's your host from Timpanogos Hearing and Tinnitus, Dr. Layne Garrett.
Now let's talk about the advice we've all been given. Just get more sleep to help your tinnitus. On the surface, it makes perfect sense. Our bodies heal when we sleep. Our brains clear out waste, process the day, and handle the stress hormones. When we're sleep deprived, our nervous system is on edge. Our emotions are frayed, and we don't just have the mental energy to cope anymore. It's easy to connect those dots. A tired, stressed out brain is going to perceive that tinnitus signal as more intrusive, more threatening, and a whole lot louder. This kicks off a vicious cycle that is probably all too familiar. Tinnitus makes it hard to sleep. The lack of sleep makes you stressed and anxious. The stress and anxiety makes your tinnitus flare up. The next night, it starts all over again, a downward spiral that can feel impossible to escape. So logically, breaking that cycle should be as simple as getting a good night's rest, right? If you could just bank 9, 10, or maybe 11 hours of sleep, you'd finally feel recovered enough and the tinnitus would start to fade away. And many of my patients have actually tried this. They go to bed earlier, they sleep in later, desperate for any extra rest, only to wake up feeling groggy. And the worst part, the ringing is still there, sometimes even more noticeable than before. This is where the frustration and hopelessness can really start to settle in. You're doing the one thing that everyone says should help, and it's failing you. Let's look past the common advice and dig into the hard science, because that frustration you've been feeling, it's real, and it's just been validated by new research. A recent large study scale analyzed from nearly 14,000 participants in the United States National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey investigated the link between sleep and tinnitus. What they found should change the conversation around tinnitus management forever. They discovered what's known as a U-shaped relationship between how long you sleep and the presence of tinnitus. Picture the letter U. At the bottom, that curve is the lowest risk for tinnitus. As you go up either side, the risk gets higher. The study found that on one side of the U represents sleeping too little, which, as we always thought, was linked to a higher prevalence of tinnitus. But here's the truly shocking part, the part that nobody is talking about yet. This same study found that the other side of the U represents sleeping too much, and people who slept for longer than the optimal amount also had a significantly higher risk of tinnitus. Let that sink in. The very strategy that so many people are turning to out of desperation, trying to get more sleep, is statistically linked to the very problem they're trying to solve. This isn't some minor blip. The data shows a clear pattern. The advice to just get more sleep might not just be unhelpful, but for some, it can be making your tinnitus worse. So the big question is, why? Why would something as restorative as sleep become a problem when you get too much of it? The answer is all about balance and rhythm. not just rest. First, the too little sleep side of the U. Think of a sleep-deprived brain like a chaotic office. Papers are flying, the phone is ringing, and you just can't focus. In that kind of situation, your brain's natural filtering system, the part that should help you ignore unimportant background noise, goes haywire. This is tied to hyperarousal and your fight or flight response. When that system is in overdrive, every little signal gets amplified. The harmless internal sound of your tinnitus, which a rested brain might ignore, is now a blaring alarm. Now let's talk about the too much sleep side of the U, which is even more fascinating. Think of your body's sleep-wake cycle not just as an on-off switch, but as a finely tuned instrument. This instrument runs on a strict 24-hour schedule called your circadian rhythm, and that loves consistency. When you drastically oversleep, you throw that delicate rhythm completely out of whack. This disruption can mess with hormone regulation, increase inflammation, and alter activity in the same parts of the brain that are involved in how we perceive tinnitus. So while it feels like you're catching up, you're actually creating a state of biological confusion. Your brain, now out of sync, can become just as hypersensitive to the internal noise as a sleep-deprived one. It's not just about the sheer quantity of rest, but the quality and consistency of your body's natural sleep-wake rhythm. So if too little sleep is bad and too much sleep is bad, there has to be a sweet spot somewhere in the middle. And according to research, there is. The bottom of that U-shaped curve, the point of the lowest risk of tinnitus, was found to be about 8.5 hours of sleep every night. And that is incredible news. For years, the advice has been to a vague, get more sleep. But now we have a target. We have a specific evidence-backed number to aim for. Of course, everyone's a little bit different. Some people might need a little more or a little bit less sleep, but having a scientifically validated starting point of around 8.5 hours changes the game. It turns the problem from an uncontrollable mystery into a solvable one. Your mission is no longer just to sleep more, your mission is to sleep just right. Knowing that target is one thing, but hitting it is another, especially when tinnitus is fighting against your sleep. Here are 5 practical, proven steps you can start tonight to land in that 8.5 hour sweet spot. First, and this is a big one, embrace a non-negotiable sleep schedule. This is the foundation for calibrating your brain. You have to go to bed and, more importantly, wake up at the same time every single day. Yes, that includes weekends. Sleeping until noon on Sunday is one of the worst things you can do for your circadian rhythm. Pick a bedtime and wake up time that gives you about 8.5 hours in bed and stick to it relentlessly. This will be the single most powerful step you take. Second, implement the 60-minute power down protocol. You can't go from 100 miles per hour to 0 in just 5 minutes. For the last hour before bed, signal to your body that it's time to rest. This means no screens. The blue light from your phone and your TV suppress melatonin, that sleep hormone. Instead, read a physical book in some dim light, or do some light stretching, listen to calming music, or maybe take a bath. This isn't just about relaxing, it's a biological cue that gets your body ready for sleep. Third, curate your sound environment. A perfectly quiet room is often the enemy, as it makes the tinnitus the only thing that your brain can focus on. You need to use sound to your advantage. This is called sound therapy. Use a fan, a white noise machine, or an app that plays gentle sounds like rain. The trick is to set the volume just below the level of your tinnitus. You don't want to mask it completely, but you want to give your brain a more pleasant sound to focus on. If you have a partner, sometimes pillow speakers are a great inexpensive option. And fourth, mind your stimulants. Now this seems obvious, but you'd be surprised. Caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol can all wreck your sleep quality and worsen your tinnitus. Caffeine can stay in your system for up to 10 hours, so that afternoon coffee might be why you're still wide awake at 11 o'clock. Alcohol might make you drowsy at first, but it severely disrupts your sleep later at night. Make a firm rule: no stimulants for at least 6 to 8 hours before your scheduled bedtime. And finally, number 5, consider cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI. This is one of the most evidence-based, long-lasting solutions for people who struggle with falling or staying asleep, especially for those dealing with tinnitus-related stress or anxiety. CBTI is different from sleep medications. It helps retrain your brain's relationship with sleep through techniques like sleep restriction, stimulus control, relaxation training, and cognitive restructuring. Studies show that CBTI can significantly improve both sleep quality and reduce the perception of tinnitus. If you're interested in finding a qualified CBTI provider, I recommend visiting the American Academy of Sleep Medicine's website. I'll leave a link below. I know the journey with tinnitus can feel lonely, and the search for relief is often filled with confusing advice. But today, science has given us a clear direction. The biggest sleep mistake might not be getting too little sleep, it's getting the wrong amount of sleep. We now know there's a U-shaped link where both too little and too much sleep are associated with worse tinnitus. And the bottom of that U is our target, our sweet spot for relief. And it's about 8.5 hours of consistent, scheduled sleep every night. You have more control than you think. This isn't just some random affliction you have to put up with. By understanding the science and taking deliberate actions, by calibrating your body's natural circadian rhythms, you take a powerful step toward reclaiming your quiet and your peace. Tinnitus doesn't have to be the loudest thing in the room.
A world of better hearing and relief from tinnitus is within reach, and we're here to help. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast right now and join us on the journey to clearer sound and a richer life. Thanks for listening to the All Ears Hearing and Tinnitus podcast with Dr. Layne Garrett. We'll see you next time.